There are 10 financial mistakes you cannot afford to make, especially right now. Larry and I think that we may be headed for some financial rocky roads. But if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that our saying is always that you never panic, but you always prepare. So planning ahead, part of that is being aware of maybe some financial mistakes that you've made in the past so you don't repeat those mistakes in the future. And hopefully this will give you some ideas also how you can handle some of those mistakes and rectify them.
If you don't know us, I'm Larry.
And I'm Hope.
And we're from Under the Median, where every week we bring you videos on practical frugality. Mistake number 1 is not planning specific goals. This means you don't have a plan in mind of what to do with the money that you need to save. And you're probably not doing anything very efficiently without some specific goals in mind.
One of the first things that Larry and I discovered after we figured out we were flat broke and we had to figure out finances, we knew that we had to track our income and track our expenses because that made like perfect sense, right? So we started doing that, and the next thing that we discovered on the heels of that was that when we did not have a plan in mind for our money, we spent the money, and usually we spend it on things that we should not have been spending the money on in the first place. And that's why we talk a lot on this channel about the importance of goals. When it comes to goals, you need 3 types of goals. You need short-term goals. Those are goals you plan to reach in anywhere from a year to say 18 months. Medium-term goals, that would be 18 months to say 5 years. Long-term goals are 5+ years. They're all different types of goals. For instance, if you're planning a family vacation, that might be a short-term goal, right? Yeah. But if you're planning to purchase a replacement car, that might be a medium-term, whereas for most of us, retirement will be one of those long-term goals. You always have to keep all of them in mind, though, as you're moving through your goal list. And as with everything, the goal list should be prioritized. It means the most important goals are the ones that you're working on. But here is a golden nugget for you. And this really changed this whole world of goals for us when we started doing this. It's not just a matter, guys, of having that list of short, medium, and long-term goals. You need to plan yearly goals. Those are the goals that are top of mind that you really want to work your way through and contribute to in the next 12 months. Then you're going to break that yearly list of goals down to quarterly goals, and you're going to have monthly goals and weekly goals. Now, this isn't as hard as it sounds because, believe me, we do it in about 15 minutes flat every single month. The thing about the goals is that they are all interconnected. They are like a stair step that as you walk up the set of steps, it allows you to reach your ultimate goals faster, easier, and with a whole lot less frustration. You need a way to visualize the goals you're working on right now, particularly if those are savings goals. You're saving toward a down payment on a car, down payment on a house. Maybe you're saving for an emergency fund or rainy day fund. Or maybe you're working on paying off debt. We have a set of goal trackers. It's free. You can print them out, put them on your refrigerator, and then you can color them in each month as you get closer and closer to your goal. That really helped us to stick to exactly what the plan was and to keep having motivation to move forward. They're free. I'm going to make sure, guys, that there is a link in the description of the video for you to grab your copy of the goal trackers.
Mistake number 2 is not looking around for options or alternatives. It's really easy to stick to the plan that you started out with, but sometimes that plan might be obsolete in a year or two. Things change all the time. Prices change and priorities change. So you have to be flexible in how you look at these things.
I just had this happen this week. There was a service that I had been using for years, and it's just outdated, and it's not working anymore like I need it to work. And I mentioned it to somebody else, and they go, it seems to me that they've been around a while, and there's a lot of other options out there that you need to be looking at. Here is an option that you might want to consider. She even gave me a really great idea for where I might go to find a plan that would work and would do what I needed it to do. That exact same scenario is exactly what happened to us when we were looking around for a new cell phone service. We had the same cell phone company for a really long time. We weren't happy with what we were paying, but we honestly didn't know what else to do. And then a friend mentioned Mint Mobile. We were intrigued. We checked it out. We switched to Mint Mobile, and we've been super happy with it ever since. Mint Mobile is our partner for this video. One of the most important things to us was that we were able to switch easily, which we were with Mint Mobile. We used an eSIM card set on the couch in our living room for about 15 minutes, got everything switched over to Mint Mobile. We were able to keep our previous cell phone number. But the other thing that was really important to us was that we not feel like we were skimping on getting all of the features that were super important to us. And with Mint, we got everything that we really wanted, and most importantly, what we really needed. Mint pairs unlimited talk and text with something that is really important to us, and that is streaming. I stream YouTube every single day on my 3-mile walk, and Larry streams it every single day on his bike ride. So we use streaming quite a bit, and we found that Mint Mobile's plans were more than adequate for the streaming that we needed. But for us, the cherry on top of the whole pie, guys, was Mint's price. $15 a month is what we pay for our cell phone service. In fact, $15 a month is the price right now for any Mint Mobile plan that you want to choose. For the first 3 months, if you are a new Mint customer, you will get any plan that you want from Mint Mobile. It will cost you $15 a month. Now, they've had this offered for a little while. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it is a limited time offer, so you're going to want to make sure to check it out right now. Mint Mobile, there's a QR code right between us. You can check it out there. You can also use our special link. It's right down there at the bottom of the screen, mintmobile.com/under the median. You'll also find a link all the way at the top of the description of this video.
The third mistake you could make is living paycheck to paycheck. And unfortunately, this is how Hope and I lived when we were first married. Every bit of the money that came in was going out. In fact, we later found out we were actually pulling some money out of savings in order to pay our rent, our high rent cost where we were at. So we had to make some very strategic adjustments in order to get out of the paycheck to paycheck.
Now, if that describes you, don't feel bad. 78% of Americans right now live paycheck to paycheck. So you're not alone, but you don't have to allow that cycle to continue. One of the things that we alluded to a little bit earlier was that we figured out deliberately how much money was coming in, how much money was going out. Now, once we figured out how much money was going out, we figured out really quickly it was too much money was going out. So we needed to be able to figure out where we could pare back. Where are those areas that are in your budget that have just a little bit of give right now, little flexibility, you can cut it back. One of our very favorite ways to figure out these areas is to do what we call our 10% challenge. We write down all of our budget categories, what we're paying for each of those budget categories right now, and then we set a timer for 20 minutes and we brainstorm ideas together of how we could cut back on each of those budget categories by just 10%. Now, that doesn't seem like much, but if you're able to cut back several of your budget categories by 10%, you're going to find yourself with several $100s in your pocket at the end of each month. That is what it could add up to.
The next thing you'll need to do to combat the paycheck to paycheck living is to build a buffer. Now, what do we mean by that? We mean you need to have an emergency fund so that when you have those quick, unexpected expenses like a car breakdown or something you have to fix quickly on your home, you've got that money stashed away and ready to be used.
We say a beginning emergency fund should be $2,000. Now, Dave Ramsey says that a fully funded emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. We say 6 months of basic living expenses, and that's what we have for a fully funded emergency fund.
This is what makes this very important. It allows you to have control of your money instead of circumstances controlling you.
Mistake number 4, not looking down the road. This was also a big money mistake that we made. We were constantly taking care of what was immediately in front of us. And I think that part of that was the result of having lived paycheck to paycheck so long. It never was part of our thinking process to think, well, we need to consider what's coming down the road in a year or 2 years or 10 years or 20 years. Even looking down the road a few months seemed impossible for a little while. But once we began to build up that buffer in the form of our emergency savings, then it became really super easy and possible for us to say what's coming up next. Here's why that is super important, especially right now. Right now, inflation is starting to catch up with all these prices. We saw inflation in 2022 in the form of higher grocery prices. And I think for some of us, we're like, oh, that was inflation, it hit, now we're moving on. What we're starting to see now is the hidden cost of inflation. All of the manufacturers, all of the insurance companies, anybody who uses products and services, which is pretty much every business, right, is now paying more for what they need in order to provide those services to us. And you're beginning to see a lot of those services rise. For instance, we just got our car insurance bill and it rose 35% over the course of a year. So a lot of those bills that you pay yearly, when they come, you should expect it's probably going to be higher. And these exercises we're talking about in this video, those will help you to prepare for those.
Problem number 5 is buying stuff that you don't need. Now, how do you figure out what you really need and what you don't need? Well, one, you put it on a list and you leave it there for a while. You don't respond to it for at least 24 to 48 hours. I would even give it more time than that. I would give it enough time so you can do really good expanded research on that product before forking down any money at all. And chances are, if you don't really need it, by the time you get done researching it, you're going to figure that out and not buy it at all.
This just happened to us today. Larry got into our supply closet because we ran out of paper in our printer, and he said, we probably got about half a ream. That's all we've got left. And I thought, all right, I'm going to start researching paper prices. It's back to school right now. So I figured I'd be able to find something. So I went on Office Depot's website. I found a box of 10 reams of paper, normally priced at $70. There was a special online coupon that brought the price down to $40.99.
Not bad.
I made sure that I was using Rakuten. Guys, if you don't use Rakuten, I'm going to leave my special link in the description of the video, and you should be using Rakuten.
It really helped.
Rakuten allowed me to get an additional 5% back cash from Rakuten on that purchase. Plus, I have a store card with Office Depot that allowed me to get 2% back in addition to the 5% on my store account. So that will allow me to spend that 2% at Office Depot. And I was also able to get free shipping. One of the things that happens is when you're thinking ahead, when you're looking down the road and you're thinking, all right, I got 6 months, this is going to run out. I got 6 weeks, this product is going to run out. When you start looking ahead, then you can strategically buy so that you're putting some meaningful thought into it. You're not buying stuff you don't need, but you're doing something really important to frugality, and that is that you are stacking those discounts on top of each other as much as you can.
So what Hope is really talking about here is practicing mindful spending. That's spending with a purpose, not just spending to be spending. And the other thing we mentioned too is to take your time, don't react quickly, don't buy things really abruptly. Give it some time to kind of weigh in and think about it and research it and think about how much do you really need this item. She didn't have to think about the paper because we use the paper. We have to have that. So it was just a matter of finding a really good deal on it. If you practice all of these things, you can certainly save money.
Mistake number 6, not paying off debt. Debt will accrue far faster than you think it will. And if you are making just the minimum payments, not only is it going to take you a long time to pay off that debt, you'll wind up paying because of high interest, especially if it is credit card debt. The average amount of debt for adult Americans age 18 and over is just shy of $23,000. And that does not include mortgage debt. Most of that, 40% of it, 41% of it are two things: credit card debt and car loans.
Yeah.
So when you look at credit card debt, that is generally an extremely high interest rate. And that debt is going to keep growing far faster than you can possibly pay it off. It'll take you years to pay it off, and you'll wind up paying over twice the amount that you originally borrowed. Pay off debt. We just did a video on it.
Yeah, we did.
5 lies that you tell yourself about paying off debt.
Yep.
We gave you lots of actionable tips in there that will help you to pay off debt if that's where you're at right now. No judgment from us, but we want you to pay off the debt, and we're helping you to do it. That video, guys, we'll link it up above and also in the description of the video.
We've been 26 years into our marriage of living debt-free. And I tell you, it does give you a lot of freedom. It frees up your money. It allows you to do things that people that make a lot more money are not able to do. So this is a really good thing to put into practice.
Mistake number 7, not reviewing your budget and your goals often enough. All right, here's my analogy. This is the hope analogy for the evening. Goals and your budget, they are not like a crock pot. So you don't put all of the ingredients in, put it on low, walk out for 8 hours, go to work, walk back in, and it's all cooked, it's ready to eat. Okay, maybe not a perfect analogy, but you get what I'm saying. It's not fix it and forget it.
Right,
you don't walk away after you set your budget and not look at it again for another 6 months or a year, especially now. And I know we keep saying this, but right now in this economy, you need to be looking at that budget and that set of goals far more often than that. We used to do it every 6 months. Now we're doing it every quarter, and I'm thinking really that we may up that to once a month because we're seeing a lot of our prices shift in what we're having to pay for things.
A lot of fast changes are happening in the financial market.
So when that happens, you just need to be more vigilant. And you have to look at it. You've got to face the numbers, and you have to figure out how you're going to deal with them.
This next one we alluded to a little bit earlier, and that's not having an emergency fund. That's where Hope and I were when we first got married. We didn't have an emergency fund. We didn't have anything set up for those unexpected expenses. One thing about unexpected expenses is that you can expect them. They will happen.
And I know we mentioned it earlier, but we'll mention it again real quick. Beginning emergency fund, $2,000. Fully funded emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. We have 6 months of our basic living expenses for our fully funded emergency fund. Problem number 9 is feeling like you just need to keep up with the current trends. You got to have your nails done. You got to have your watch. Now, I'm using those examples for a specific reason. We had a comment that was left last week in a video that said, well, I was going to listen to her, but I noticed her fancy manicure and her Apple Watch. All right, guys, the fancy manicure, these are really my nails, my natural nails. And the nail polish was $1 on clearance at Big Lots. The watch is not an Apple Watch. It's a very old Fitbit that I bought used probably 7 years ago. We tend to look at people, don't we, though? Yeah. And that's my point. And say, well, they must have money. They must be spending a lot of money because they look like they are.
Now, I have an Apple Watch. I don't happen to have it on tonight. I've got my old Timex on. But I have an Apple Watch that I found in a used chair that we bought from a thrift store. I was digging down and looking for something that we'd lost. And I pulled up this watch. And I went, my gosh, it's an Apple Watch. My son had a charger for it, and we were able to charge it up. And it turns out it works just fine. That was totally free. So don't make a prejudgment on somebody because it looks like they've spent a lot of money on something when maybe they haven't.
You know what's weird? We bought that chair probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
We took it out of the store.
Yeah.
We put it in the back of the car. We hauled it 3 places in the house before I went, oh, don't move it. It looks real good right there. And so, I mean, it's not like we've never moved the chair. And that watch was still wedged down in there. I thought, my God, it was wedged down there really, really well. It was an act of God that didn't fall out somewhere between the thrift store and our house.
Yeah, I had to take the cushion off and put my hand way down between the existing cushions in order to find it. So it did take a little bit to locate that. I couldn't believe I pulled that up. I went, my gosh, I don't know what this is, but it looks cool.
So the moral of the story is, guys, we want everybody after the video, go and
check
look at all the cushions. And then you have to tell us in the comment section what the coolest thing is that you have ever found in a couch cushion or a chair cushion. Go tell us in the comment section because this could be kind of fun. Mistake number 10, avoiding or ignoring financial decisions or financial problems. I think it's sort of human nature to turn a blind eye and go, I just can't look, I can't look, I can't look. And the problem is, like, part of that feeling is born out of an inner feeling that you can't get out of it. It's like you're in a hole and there's no way you're going to be able to dig yourself out. But the problem is, the longer that you refuse to look the numbers square in the face and to start the process, that slow stair step of working your way out of debt, the deeper you're going to go into the debt.
And the more anxiety you're going to have, because there's always some anxiety with uncertainty.
I think we mentioned this last week in one of our videos that we know someone who was $30,000 in credit card debt. and they were just making minimum payments. And we're like, the longer you do that, the deeper the debt gets.
Yep.
Bite the bullet, pay them off,
Yep.
move on with life, and figure out what you've got left to build on, because they had the money available to pay them off. So
Yep.
sometimes you just have to you rip the Band-Aid off, and
right. That's
and
right.
you need to look at the numbers, and because it's not going to make it any better by not looking at them. And we know this is hard, because there have been many times in our life
yeah.
where we've had to rip the Band-Aid off and look the numbers square in the face.
And numbers don't lie.
Yep.
You can't fake what the numbers are telling you.
But I don't think we've ever regretted it.
Not
Not once
at
have we
all.
looked at each other and said,
Not
oh,
at
I
all.
totally regret looking at those numbers.
Yeah.
Because after we looked at them, then we started building together an idea and a plan for getting past it and
That's right.
moving on to where we wanted to be. You always have to have your eyes on the prize. And I know we've mentioned this before, I'll mention again. The most important thing about getting out of debt, becoming debt-free, staying debt-free, living within your means is knowing your why.
Yeah.
Every single financial goal that you write should have a statement after it that says, so that. So that what? So you can sleep better at night knowing your visa's paid off, so that you don't have to have bill collectors calling, so that you can plan for retirement, so that you can pay for that family trip and pay cash to see Mickey and the gang. What's your so that? What is the payoff at the end of the payoff that you're really looking for? Because that's so that is your why, and that'll keep you moving forward.
If getting out of debt is one of your roadblocks, that's what's keeping you from really moving on, we've got a video that can really help you. And that's the one that we did mention already in this video. It's one we just recently did about the 5 lies that will keep you in debt. If you want to look at that, we've got it right over there.